All right, welcome back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com NHL DFS strategy show. We've got a jam-packed schedule today, 10 games to discuss. I'm Jake Hari, and I'm joined by Michael Clifford. Slim Cliffy, how was your evening last night?
I won't complain, all things considered, because I had a ton of Toronto won and Colorado won, and they pretty much went busto, and I still managed to eke out a little profit. So anytime I have a night like that, not going to complain at all. How'd you do?
Not too bad. I was really heavy on Colorado won and Toronto won, so neither of them did much of anything, and I think I ended up getting like 70% of my entries back. So felt okay about that. Certainly wasn't close to banking anything at all, which is going to be the case for like 90% of slates. But moving on, tonight we got a good slate and a ton of money to be made, I think. 15K to first over on FanDuel. We've got a couple 20Ks to first over on DraftKings. I've been pleasantly surprised with the contest selection on DraftKings so far this season. Like if you're playing the upper stakes, if you're a single entry guy, I think overall it's been a lot better than in years past. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it has been. And like the $10 or, sometimes it's a $12, $11, whatever. There's been a lot of times where it's been 10K to first in prior seasons. And that's the absolute best that we'd ever get. So like pretty consistently 20K to first is nice to see. I mean, it just means that there's a lot more interest in the NHL than there has been in recent seasons, which is great because like growing Nhl Dfs has been one of the problems of Nhl Dfs over the last 5 years or so. I was worried last night because I don't think the $10 filled. It was a few hundred entries short, so I thought they might make it smaller today, but they actually made it bigger. It's been really nice to see. One of the things that I take enjoyment out of is people saying, you've helped me get interested in hockey. You've helped me understand hockey better. You've helped me know what's going on and all that stuff. And when people say that to me, that tells me that we're getting fans for life. And I think that's, obviously it's not just us. There are thousands of people doing what we do, but it's nice to see the game growing a little.
Yeah, very nice to see that. So hopefully that sticks throughout the rest of the season. I mean, we're about, a third of the way through the regular season. So maybe even a little bit more. Some of these teams coming up on the halfway mark the next week or so. So hopefully if you're new, you've been enjoying playing NHL DFS. We certainly have enjoyed it. Had a lot of successful subscribers. One of them just popped in with the huge super chat. He's been just going nuclear over these basically since the season started. It seems like Eric Hofbrau won the 333 along with the rest of the single entries. He says he took down 40K last night, which is very hard to do because the highest first place prize on DK is 20K to first, at least last night. So just completely crushed everything. He super chatted 150 so Josh could get some love as well, because apparently Josh is never on the stream when Hoff banks. So congrats. Thank you as always for the super chat. Very generous of you. Liquid Demon says pick better players. That is pretty good advice. And then Jeff says, thank you so much. Took down the first place in the early 2-game slate, 2 different contests, invested $70, and he took down 3K. So he had to sweat the empty net goal. Always nice when that goes your way, whether you're anti-sweating or sweating trying to get your empty net goal. I've had to go both ways. I've had to go both ways well. I've had to go both ways poorly. It evens out in the end, but it seems like you always remember the nights that it does not go your way. So just remember that one went your way. So the next time it happens, you won't feel too bad about it going the other way. A lot of people chiming in, liking NHL DFS so far this season. So welcome, everybody. Already got close to 100 people in here. If you guys want to, I'm not even going to ask for likes. If you want to subscribe to the channel, that would help us out a ton. We hit 50K subscribers a few weeks ago, actually about a month ago. And, we were really excited to do that. But now we want to get to 75K. We want to get to 100K. So your subscribes are going to really help us out. Every single one of them counts. Just hit the notification bell and you'll know when we go live. Feel free to drop us a like, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. And if you like what we do, it's going to help you out anyways. Off the top, We've also got this promo code college going on. If you like college basketball, if you're excited for March Madness, promo code college will get you the college basketball projections that just went behind the paywall for $4.98 for your first week of college basketball DFS. I will definitely be playing some college basketball DFS. Do you bet at all or do any DFS for college basketball? I mean, now you've got the opportunity to do so, Cliffy.
Yeah, exactly. Now that I have the tools available to me, I probably will, because, I love NHL. Don't get me wrong, but when those college basketball games hit at like noon or 1 o'clock, you get to watch it every day. I love it. We had that in the return to play playoffs. So yeah, I'll definitely be dabbling once March Madness rolls around.
Yeah, for sure. Me as well. Once again, that promo code is college. You just use that on the CBB weekly pass if you're looking to get involved. If you want to get a platinum weekly, that is probably your best bet, $29.95 per week. If you're looking to get everything on the site, you can add on FC for an additional charge. You guys know the spiel. We've got 10 games, so we're going to get right into it. We've got Boston and the New York Islanders, 2.8 implied total for the Bruins, 2.4 for the Islanders. Actually, it's not Tuukka Rask. It is Halak, I believe, this evening. And then it's probably going to be Varlamov for the Islanders. You asked me a question, so I will ask you this right off the bat. You asked me before the show, are we playing Islanders 1? Are we playing Islanders 1 tonight, Cliffy?
I am playing some Islanders 1 tonight. What's different with the Islanders this year compared to prior years is this year they're sending out, at least now that Anthony Beauvillier is back, they're sending out Beauvillier and Brock Nelson, their second line, up against the top line. And tonight that's going to be up against Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. That's just an absolutely brutal for the Islanders top line. But that means that, or for the Islanders second line, sorry, that means the Islanders top line is going to get the depth from Boston here. And the thing about the Bruins is that they're going through a ton of injuries right now, especially on the blue line. If you look at, I think it was Jacob Lozon was hurt. They have like 3 or 4 guys, or Kevin Miller is hurt. They have like 3 defensemen out of the lineup. So, Charlie McAvoy is still there and he's their best defenseman, but he's going to be on the ice quite often with Pasternak and them, which means that the Islanders top line might not see a lot of him tonight. They're still going to see him because McAvoy's probably going to end up playing 30 minutes. But that kind of gets me towards the Islanders. So I'm not going to have a lot of them. I think our ownership projections have them, somewhere around the 4 or 5% range. So I'm only going to probably put them in about 2 out of 20 of my lineups, but that'll get me double the field. They played well this year. Eberle back on the top line makes a big difference because he's a big offensive driver. Really great offensive play driving numbers. So I'm in on the Islanders top line, not super heavy. I'm going to have a couple shares. I'm pretty out on Boston altogether. That top line price, I'm the type of guy that would take a stab on them at 24K on the road, but this is just a brutal matchup for them. The Islanders are great defensively, one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. They're taking the 3rd fewest penalties per game of any team. So Boston, a lot of their value comes through the power play. And if they only get 1 or 2 power play opportunities, that really cuts into their upside. So I'm more or less out on Boston completely. Don't mind Brandon Carlo for 3,500, I believe he is. With all their injuries, he's probably going to easily see 20, 21 minutes. So some one-off Carlo, but that's it for me here. Islanders 1, mixing in some one-off Carlo from the Bruins. And I like Varlamov in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I get why we like Islanders 1 here, why you like them a little bit. I think I'm in agreement with you. It's just a good, a line that's good at 5-on-5, not a bad matchup, maybe a neutral matchup or a little bit below average, but we've seen them overcome pretty bad matchups before. We're pretty confident they're not going to face off against Bergeron too often, which is good. It is a really low total for them. But again, we're playing for the 80th, 90th percentile outcomes here. And so they could easily pop in a couple goals. Good price. Again, they're fully correlated. I think if you did a drinking game about every time I said fully correlated, you might die by the 3rd game on this slate. So, just keep that in mind. Stay safe if you're watching at home. Definitely don't do that game whenever I'm on the show. But anyways, they're fully correlated and not going to face Boston 1. So that is the good there. Just a really good 5-on-5 line. I'm always looking for reasons to play that line, especially when their ownership is reasonable, looks reasonable to me right now on DK. If you go over to FanDuel, it's even lower over there. They're a little bit more expensive. So, yeah, mostly Islanders won for me in this game. Top Stacks tool is free today. So if you want to check that out, you'll see some pretty crazy numbers on Boston 1. Top 2 stack percentage, they are at 19%. Their ownership share is 1.8%. So like that's about as big of a discrepancy as you're going to see. 17.2% positive leverage. If you want to play Boston 1, I get it. They're like 2,400. Yeah, 2,400 more expensive than the next highest price line, which is Edmonton 1. And then no other line right now is above 20K. So like your options are just so limited with them. It's not a great matchup, as you said. So I don't think I'll have too many Boston 1s. I did see some of them are popping up. The question is, can I get a Boston lineup that's not going to be duped 10 ways on a 10-game slate? And so that's the difficulty here. I think that's all I've got on this game. Pulak, I think I'm using him more as a correlation play. Like in prior years, he was shooting a lot more. This season, he hasn't really been. And so 5K, not crazy about that price. Might get him in one or two of my Islanders 1 stacks. And I'm with you on Varlamov at 7,600. Pretty good correlation play. Low total against, probably going to see some okay volume and hopefully some low danger volume if you play him. Let's go to Pittsburgh and Washington. 3.2 implied total for the Penguins, 3.2 as well for the Caps. Tristan Jarry and Vitek Vanacek are your goalies. New Caps lines, which you alerted me to right before the show, so I will read them off. Ovechkin with Kuznetsov and Connor Sheary. Verano with Backstrom and Tom Wilson. Eller, Panik, and TJ Oshie on that third line. Caps have been mixing it up a handful of times over these last couple weeks. The Penguins going with Crosby, Gensel, Kapanen. We've seen that for a couple games now. Malkin and Rust with Zach Aston Reese because Jason Zucker has been placed on IR. Pretty ugly injury he had the other night. So he's going to be out for probably an extended period of time. What do you like in this game? Big totals on both sides.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to mention is like those Washington lines kind of mess up what our intention was for today, because when Oshie and Backstrom were skating on the same line, they were taking the defensive responsibility. So tonight it would have been the Crosby line. But now that they've mixed up the lines, we don't really know what the line matching is going to be. And the last time they went to a lineup that was looking similar to this, they didn't hard match anyone at all. It was just send out whoever they wanted. Ovechkin got his obligatory 20 minutes of ice time or whatever. So there's no real line matching here that I'm concerned with specifically. Like, I don't want to go into that Backstrom, Verano, Wilson line, but like the defense behind them isn't great. You know what I mean? So as long as Pittsburgh 1 or Pittsburgh 2 isn't trapped in their end by that line, I think that they could do some damage here. So I was going into the day on Pittsburgh 2, and I'm going to stay on Pittsburgh 2. Zach Aston Reese joining them, like, I think it kind of helps that line. Like, Zach Aston Reese is an elite defensive forward. Like, I mean, elite defensive forward. And that's something that line desperately needed. I think he'll help them make them a bit more responsible, and that might be counterintuitive to offense. But if he helps them get the puck out of the zone and transitions offense, going into the offensive zone better, I kind of almost want that more than a shooter like Jason Zucker. So, you don't have to have Zach Aston Reese on there because he is 4K. It's a little expensive for a third wheel on DraftKings, and he won't play on the power play with them, but I don't mind leaving him in there with my Pittsburgh 2 stack. So I'm in on Pittsburgh 2. I'm mixing in a couple like power play stacks because the Washington penalty kill is nothing to write home about. So this game is more about Pittsburgh for me than Washington. Like, if you want to start Washington, I'll never begrudge you for that. But Ovechkin's on a line with two guys that won't be on the top power play with them. Pittsburgh's among the bottom 10 teams for penalties on the season. Like, they don't take a lot. So, like I said, I'm not going to fault anybody for taking the Washington power play, but they're just not on my radar today. Today, for me, it's about Malkin and Rust, throwing in some Letang and Crosby and those guys with them.
I was playing 100, or I'm sorry, I am playing 150. If I was playing like 20 or 3 max, I don't think Washington would be on my radar either. And actually, they're not even really coming up for me all that often in my MME builds. So, yeah, again, if you want to go to the power play, like you said, that's fine. Like they have a good power play. They've got Ovi. He's like always a guy that you could see getting a hat trick. It's a good total. I'm just not sure what to think of these lines. I'm not sure where the scoring is going to come from. I feel much more confident in Pittsburgh here and got to make some sort of cuts on a 10-game slate, even with a ton of lineups that I'm running out. I think I'm a little bit more on the Crosby line here. I'm surprised to see their ownership is higher, but we didn't run it with Aston Reese on line 2. So maybe a cheap, I'm not sure where Zucker we had projected there. I'm not sure where he was at in the first ownership run, but I think people will leave off Kapanen. That's fine. You could definitely go Crosby, Gensel, Rust, or you could go Malkin, Rust, and then one of Crosby or Gensel if you wanted to complete the 3-man. They're very reasonably priced. And the Crosby line was just so good in their last game at 5-on-5. I don't know if they have an answer for him, especially if Backstrom is not going to hard match them. So, which they didn't last game. And so I think this could be trouble for the Caps. Definitely like the Crosby line. I'm not off the Pittsburgh 2 line by any means. And then I'm going to have some like hybrid 3-man stacks mixing in line 1 and line 2. I am also going to be at least running, crunching out some full Pittsburgh power play stacks. I think this could be a spot like where you see 5 or 6 goals and like the full power play stack could work out here, especially in smaller field stuff. I don't love that as much in MME, like the $10 tournament on DK or the $7 on FanDuel. But if you're playing and you're just trying to get as much correlation as possible, I think a full 5-man pit power play stack is a pretty solid play. Letang, his price has come down, I think, a little bit, 5,700 here. Still just a correlation play, I think, for me. Hard to imagine him having a big game without one of the 2 Pittsburgh lines going nuts.
Yeah, you know what happened last time you said that.
Yeah, 2 goals. I mean, whatever. He's going to have his 2-goal game every once in a while. But I think over the long run, if you're playing, like if you're one-offing Letang, I think you're going to end up behind. So.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Especially on a 10-gamer. Like, we've got good defensemen like Matt Irwin we can play, as one-offs. You don't have to worry about Letang. Carlson, 6,800. He would probably more be a correlation play. Not that he is in general. He definitely shoots a bunch and gets a lot of assists on power plays. So I'm not off of him, but he wasn't coming up for me just because there's guys that are cheaper that project for a little bit better outcomes on a median outcome basis. So not a lot of Caps for me, a lot of Penguins for me so far. And I don't see that really changing by the time we get to lock. Anything else in this game?
Yeah, I think I don't mind Carlson as a one-off. I think he could be a decent pivot to the expensive one-off defenseman we have like Hamilton or Yossi. Like if you want to get different, that's all.
All right, let's go to Carolina and Tampa. 2.8 implied total for the Hurricanes, 3.3 for the Lightning. It is going to be Reimer and McElhinney, I believe. On the lineup builder, these goalies aren't being confirmed, so I'm like, there's like a question mark at the end of all these goalies because I can't remember who was confirmed. But
yeah, well, they played last night, right? So it was last night was Vasilevsky against Nedeljkovic. So it's probably McElhinney and Reimer tonight.
Okay, cool. Not that matters a ton. Just make sure you get the right goalie in. Goalie skill doesn't matter too much for DFS unless you're John Gibson. But this one, 6 implied total, kind of one of the higher totals on the slate. Some juice to the over. Are these new lines confirmed for the Lightning? Point Palat. Are you seeing Point Palat Coleman?
Yeah, that's what they went with last game.
Okay, I didn't see that last night, so it appears I need to prepare a little bit more before shows.
Well, last night they had those paired games at 5 Eastern, right? Like, yeah. And I write about recaps at Dobber Hockey, and I forgot about those games for my recap this morning. So,
okay. I mean, do you like any of them just in general? Do you like how they played last night? Is there anything you're looking for on the Tampa side?
I mean, Tampa ran them over. like I think every line was 75% plus expected goal share, which is like, that's obviously a fluke. That's not going to happen constantly against this Carolina team. Carolina is way too good. But like Blake Coleman moving to the top line for Tampa, it makes me not want to use Tampa 1, but it also makes me not want to use Carolina 1, because like Coleman is truly one of the elite two-way wingers in hockey. Great offensively and great defensively. And he joins Point and Palat. Like, that's going to be an absolute meat grinder matchup for Aho and company. So I don't think it'd be a surprise to see that Tampa top line dominate possession again. So I'm actually kind of out on both top lines here for that reason. Like, I think it's a tough matchup for both top lines. So I'm looking down more at the second line, and the Stamkos, Johnson, Killorn line matched up quite a bit against the Trocheck line. And like, Trocheck line got hemmed in quite a bit, but I suspect they'll have a bounce back game here. They've been really good all year. Trocheck and Natchez have looked spectacular. Niederreiter's look spectacular. I think they look a lot better here tonight than they did last night. So I don't mind that Carolina second line, Trocheck, Natchez, and Niederreiter. Niederreiter, I think he only played like 13 minutes last game, but he's still shooting a ton, so I'm not super concerned about his ice time levels. If you want to leave off Trocheck and just do like a two-man Niederreiter Natchez because of secondary power play correlation, I'm fine with that. I just think it's a good matchup going into that second line from Tampa, right? Because Tyler Johnson is a very good defensively. Steven Stamkos is a wonder offensively, but you know, he's iffy defensively. Like, I think that second line can be had here. So I'm in on Carolina 2. I don't really have a lot of Tampa 1. Like, I wouldn't begrudge anybody for using them. It's just I think I'm more picking one-offs from Tampa. Like, I'll have some one-off Coleman because he's played like 18, 19 minutes the last couple of games, and he's a shooting machine. Like, that level of ice time puts 5-shot bonus firmly in range for him. So I love one-off Coleman. I wrote him up on the power play articles this morning for Awesemo. You know, one-off Killorn, one-off Stamkos. That's kind of the route that I'm going with Tampa Bay here. I'm not stacking them. They're not in my mix. So out of this game, I'm taking Carolina 2, maybe some two-man stacks, Niederreiter, Natchez, you know, one-off in guys like Coleman and Stamkos, and that's about it.
Yeah, definitely like the Coleman one-off now that I'm seeing these lines for the first time. I did actually crunch out with these lines, so I wanted to make sure this wasn't like a late addition on Fantasy Cruncher. It looks like they've got these correct lines. So Coleman's a bargain, 3,900, probably playing more minutes than what we're used to seeing out of him. And then I just quick pulled up the game report on Natural Stat Trick, and yeah, like all these lines played very well yesterday. Not seeing a bunch that would change after a 3-0 shutout just 24 hours ago. So I think tough matchup for Carolina, especially that top line. And then no ownership on Carolina too. So I'm right there with you. I mean, if I got them like in 5 to 8 of my 150, I think I'd feel pretty good about that with Carolina too. Hopefully avoiding the Point Palat Coleman trio. And that's really about it. Would you think about power play stacking Tampa here with Point Palat and Stamkos, basically their old top line, and then throwing in Hedman?
I mean, I don't mind it because, like, obviously that's going to be unique. It's not, you know, I don't think that's a combination people are going to go towards tonight. But Carolina has arguably the best penalty kill in the league. Fewest expected goals against per 60 minutes. Fewest shot attempts allowed per 60 minutes. Like, their actual goals against are 20th in the league. So, like, and they're below average, like, taking penalties for penalty taking. So, like, I think it's just an all-around bad matchup for a power play stack. Like, that's kind of the reason why I'm out on Tampa today's. Like, power play stacking is one thing I do a lot with them, and I just don't think, like, it's viable. It's hockey. Like, anything can happen in hockey, but it's just not something I'm counting on happening tonight.
All right, fair enough. I've got a handful of Hedman lineups as well. Looks like he's picking up double-digit ownership right now, 6,600. Because I don't love a lot in this game, I think most of my exposure on the Tampa side will come through Hedman at that price. He was priced up over 7K for a number of slates in a row. I think this is a fine price. Just depends on where you guys all have him in your defensive power rankings with Yossi and whoever else is priced up there. Carlson, we've talked about a little bit. Letang. I like Hedman as one of the best one-off defenseman plays tonight. Dallas, Florida, 2.7 implied total for the Stars, 3 for the Panthers. I believe it's going to be Odinger against Bobrovsky. The backups went last night, or I guess Odinger is the backup for Dallas. But you get what I'm saying. These two teams played 24 hours ago as well in that little early slate. Do you like anything here?
Well, I did until I saw Rope Hintz was out again. That kind of, because I was going to be on Hintz and Gurianov here tonight, but that's obviously not going to happen now that Rope Hintz is going to be out again. I do like Florida a lot. The one thing that concerns me with Florida is, if I'm not mistaken, we have a fair amount of ownership. Well, not a lot, I should say. We have 5%. We have a full line of 4%. What I love here is Florida power play. Like, I know,
yes,
and I know that I've been kind of hard on Jonathan Huberdeau, and he's made me look like a fool. But Dallas is taking a ton of penalties this year. They're leading the league in penalties taken per 60 or per game this year, which is not something you want to do against this Florida team, because this Florida power play has just been absolute death all season, like one of the best in the league still. And the problem with Dallas is their penalty kill isn't great. They are 26th by expected goals against, and they're 17th by actual goals against. So the best you could say about this penalty kill is that it's in the bottom half of the league, and they lead the league in penalties taken. So I absolutely love everything about the Florida power play tonight. Like, I don't even like double defensemen on big slates like this, and I have a Yandel Ekblad lineup, like Barkov, Yandel Ekblad. I just think it's just such a good spot for this Florida power play that I'm having a real hard time getting away from it. So I'm mixing in, Barkov, Hornfist, Huberdeau, the two defensemen. I'm throwing like Verhaeghe in or Duclair in with some lines, but I'm not focused so much on the even strength lines for Florida here tonight. For me, for this game, it's all about the Florida power play. So give me as much Barkov, Hornfist, Huberdeau, Yandel, Ekblad as I can handle.
It's going to be a lot of the same for me. Barkov, always the anchor on the Florida side for me when they have these lines. They seem like they're going to keep these for the foreseeable future. So Florida won really good offensively at 5-on-5. That would be the 5-on-5 line I'd be looking to stack. And then right there with you on Barkov, Huberdeau, Hornquist with one or both of the defensemen, probably just one. I'm getting to a little bit more Yandel just because he's cheaper. But yeah, I like the prices on the Panthers. 3 implied goal total is making, like, if this were 3.5, I think they'd be one of the more popular teams on the slate. And so 3 is keeping their ownership in check, I think. And I feel like I know exactly where I want to go on this. Again, even strength line, Florida 1. And I also like the Florida power play. Not in love with anything on the star side, but I have to point out that the Faxa Ben Gurianov line looks like it's going to be one of the more popular fillers because you got a $2,800 Faxa and then 2 guys on the top power play. Jamie Ben priced down a little bit. Gurianov under 5K. What do you think about that line?
I don't mind using them. I wouldn't begrudge anybody for using them. I just don't. I have a lot of faith that the Dallas lines are going to stay consistent all night, right? Like, if they get down 2-0 early with all the injuries they have, I think you're going to see a line blender. So, I think the only game script that works is if Dallas has a lead or blows them out all game long, and that's just not what I see tonight, or else I would be on them and I'd be off Florida.
Fair enough. The other note here is that Gustav Forsling, I think he's expected to be out. And so I'm seeing Juleson in. He's mid-salary, but I'd much rather play Forsling if he were to play. So that's about it there. Again, want to mention that we've got the NHL Top Stacks is free today. Nightbot will hook you up with the link there, I'm sure, in the next couple minutes. Also NBA projections. And if you're playing some UFC this week, UFC Pro Plays. We've got a UFC strategy show as well tonight. We'll have a live before lock on Saturday. NBA shows, you guys know the deal. Pretty much anytime that our show is not on, or the PGA show is not on, or the MMA show is not on, there's NBA content on the YouTube channel. So subscribe if you're looking to play multiple sports. There's no reason not to. Your subscriptions help us out a ton, not only to the site, but to our YouTube channel. We're trying to build up our subscriber count and get over 100K in the next year or so. I think somewhere around there. Other than that, we're also approaching 30,000 followers on Twitter, and we need your help. We're giving away 30 free weekly passes. So if you're on a following spree at Awesemo.com or at Awesemo_com on Twitter is the handle, and give us a follow, and you got a chance to win a free weekly pass. Let's get to Columbus and the Blackhawks. Columbus hosting the Blackhawks, 2.7 implied total for the Hawks, 2.9 for the Jackets. It is Malcolm Subban in net, and it is Jonas Korpisalo. I feel like we've had 3 or 4 of these two teams matching up. You get a 5.5 implied total, and the game ends up having 10 or 11 goals. Are we going to see that again tonight, or you think this one's going to be a little bit more tight checking? New Blue Jackets lines is really the only thing of note here.
Yeah, and I think those new Blue Jackets lines kind of give us an indication the type of game that John Tortorella wants here tonight. Nick Foligno joining the top line with Oliver Bjorkstrand and Patrick Laine kind of tells me that they want to grind this game down more. Like, I do not imagine that John Tortorella wants to see a 5-4, 6-5 game again. That's probably shaved a year off his life. So I think we see a tighter checking game. Like, I look at our top stacks, and I'm usually in on Patrick Kane when he has a really low ownership, but we're actually not showing very low ownership for him. Our top stacks tool has them at 13% as a trio. Like, any line, almost any line in the teens on the road on a 10-game slate is an automatic fade for me. Like, it's
7 total only too.
Yeah, especially with a low total and $20,000 flat on DraftKings. Like, it's just like we've talked about how overrated Columbus is before, but I think this is just swinging too far in the other direction. So I'm mostly out on Chicago tonight. Like, I think Dominic Kubalik makes a lot of sense as a one-off. The guy just keeps shooting and scoring. He can't stop. Like, they could stuff him on the 4th line and he'll end up with 20 goals this year. It's crazy. But yeah, so I like Kubalik. But for me on the Columbus side, it's more about the Rozovic, Atkinson, Jenner line. Because here's the thing. Like, we talked about Luke Cunningham a couple weeks ago when he was on the top line for Nashville. And at that time, I talked about team chemistry and line chemistry and players playing together that fit together. And I don't see Nick Foligno fitting on that top line. He's just a dud offensively. Like, he's not good in transition. He's not good with zone entries or exits. He's not good with shot assists. He doesn't shoot. He doesn't do anything. He's very good defensively, and that's what he does. But that's just a black hole in the middle of that line. So now you're relying on Bjorkstrand and Laine to effectively generate goals 4-on-5. Like, it's just not something that's appealing to me. Jack Rozovic, on the other hand, he has excellent transition numbers. That's kind of why, him and Laine and Atkinson took off immediately when they did, is because he's good. He has good shot assist rates, which means he can find his teammates in the offensive zone. He has good transition rates. Jenner and Atkinson are both shooters. Like, it seems to me like the way the second line is built is better for offense than the way the top line is built. So I'm jumping down to Rozovic, Atkinson, and Jenner a fair bit, mixing in some two-mans. I mean, Rozovic and Atkinson should still be on the top power play unit together, if I'm not mistaken. So you're still getting a couple guys, a couple shares off that top PP unit, and Jenner is just an absolute shooting machine. So with their price being where it is fairly reasonable. I have absolutely no problem jumping down to Columbus too. So that's where my focus is on this game. Zach Werenski coming back. Like, I wouldn't hate if somebody wanted to use Werenski 4,400. He's big savings off Seth Jones. It's just like, Columbus has had trouble scoring this year. At least until Patrick Laine came. Werenski didn't look great. Like, he wasn't producing a lot before he went out, so I might give it another game. Like, if you want to use him for 4,400 because he should be relatively low owned, I don't mind, but he's off my radar. So I'm in on CBJ too, out on Chicago, in on a little bit of Korpisalo, but not much.
Yeah, I'm pretty much out on Chicago at these ownerships. You mentioned all the reasons why. I'm right there with you. I don't have a favorite Columbus line. It's going to be a sprinkle. So my usual spiel on Columbus, it works for the most part. It didn't work out last game. Like, whatever. There's going to be slates like that where weird stuff happens. But new lines, I have no clue what to think of these. Seth Jones priced up a little bit, 5,800. Lowers my interest in him. He just hasn't been the same kind of player. Maybe with Werenski back, that helps him. I'm not exactly sure, but not a ton of interest for me in this game. Just, fade and pray that the Chicago chalk doesn't get there. I think we're pretty close, if not right on the expected ownership. People love playing Kane and DeBrincat. Like, whatever price, you look at the box score on DraftKings and people are just going to load them in.
Yeah, and I just I get it to an extent, but it's not like a couple nights ago they were what, like 3, 4, 5% or something like that. Like, this isn't that. They're, like I said, they're probably.
Oh no, they were high owned. They were like in the higher stakes. They were like mid-teens.
Were they? Oh, maybe I'm thinking of Tampa Bay then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was Tampa Bay that was low owned. That's my mistake.
No, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand wanting to get in on Chicago. Like we said, Columbus is probably overrated, but Werenski's back. That is a tough defense pair to go into. Like, I think with the ownership, Werenski back, I think there are enough reasons to be on a Chicago one. And just to go back to Roslovic and Atkinson for a second, one thing I forgot to mention was Malcolm Subban starting. It's not Kevin Lankinen, and Malcolm Subban is a legitimately bad goaltender. And the other thing is that Roslovic has been typically sent out against the third line since he's arrived in Columbus. So, once you get towards the depth of Chicago, the top end is fine. But once you get down to those second and third lines, those second and third pairs, I think that they can be had. So, I think that's another data point in favor of Columbus 2 here tonight.
All right. We got to pick up the pace, so let's move it on to the next game. Calgary, Ottawa, 3.4 implied total for the Flames, 2.7 for the Sens. David Riddick going again after 2 impressive starts. Got 3 points against the Leafs. Matt Murray, your expected goalie for the Sens. Which side are you on here more? Total exposure?
Oh, it's Ottawa, and it's not even close. I'm more or less completely out on Calgary today.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, man. I don't feel good about it either. So my reasoning is basically Calgary at some point just kind of has to run out of gas. This has been a really crazy schedule for them. This is back-to-back 3 and 4, 4 and 6, 5 and 7. That's a lot of hockey. 5 and 7 games. I think they're all on the road. No, one was at home. That's a lot of hockey in a small amount of time. At a certain point, guys just start to look forward to going home. They have a 3-game set with Ottawa coming up. So maybe it's not until later in this series that they start to falter, but it's just so much hockey to play in such a short time frame. And it's not like Calgary's been great. They haven't looked that good all year. So, Thomas Chabot being back kind of changes things. That actually gives them a good top defensive pair to worry about. So, if I was going to, stack Calgary, I would probably want to stack the top line. Lindholm, Mangiapane, Tkachuk. You get a couple guys on the power play. They've typically been the best line all year. But then you're going into the top line for Ottawa, and they've been really good defensively. You're going into Thomas Chabot, who's an upgrade over everybody on that Ottawa blue line. And like I said, it's just been a brutal schedule for Calgary of late. So I just don't have really that much interest in the Flames. I think if I was gonna go into Calgary, it would probably just be the top line. I'm not gonna dip down to the third line. I don't think there aren't any expensive lines I'm using tonight. If you want to use the third line with a Boston one, I guess that'd be fine. But I don't think there's any need to go down that far. And the second line's just been pretty much garbage all year. I have no interest in playing, Sam Bennett and Sean Monahan again. So, if you're in on Calgary, I suspect to be the top line because they've been great, but I'm just not in on them tonight. For me, it's about the White, the Donoff, Paul line. For Ottawa, they're going to get the Monahan, Bennett, Gaudreau matchup, and that's a great matchup for Ottawa, believe it or not. White, Donoff, and Paul, nearly 3 expected goals per 60 minutes together this year. That's just outstanding. And I think they're due for some positive regression. And they're super cheap. So, if you do have expensive stacks, you need to fit in elsewhere. I think that's where you should go. So I'm in on Ottawa, White, Dadonov and Paul here tonight.
Yeah, I like the call on Ottawa too. I will be there as well. I'm struggling a little bit on what to do with Calgary. Right now, we've got them projected at pretty low ownership. I have to imagine that comes up. 3.4 total, just compared to their prices, they look a little bit underpriced. So like the Norris Kachuk Brown matchup, I don't think is phenomenal here for Calgary 1. So that's really like at these ownerships, I think I would have a lot of Calgary if they come up double their ownership, which I think is reasonable to think, especially at the higher stakes. I think they'll be more popular. I'm going to be less on them. So a little bit torn on what I want to do with Calgary, but once we get another ownership update, I'll have more information on that one. But I definitely like Ottawa here, regardless of where their ownership's at. Looks like top line, not going to be very popular. You can definitely power play stack them if you'd like. The problem is their power play 1 guys are split up across 3 lines. So, yeah, really like Kachuk at 6,200. I think one of the better one-off guys if you're worried about his line mates, and for good reason. So that's where I'm at on this game. Anything else you wanted to add here?
No, that's it for me.
Oh, let me add Geo, 5,800. Got a bunch of Geo one-offs. Power play 2, but decent rates still. He's just not getting the power play 1 time, so his ownership won't be very high even with Calgary stacks. Let's go to the Devils and the Sabres. 2.8 implied total for the Devils, 2.8 as well for the Sabres. Mackenzie Blackwood and Linus Allmark. Your expected goalies. Is this Buffalo night? Buffalo onslaught night, maybe?
Like I'm not going to go that far, but it's got to be Buffalo night tonight, right? Like it has to finally happen at some point. Like I was writing my power play articles this morning. I was looking at some Jack Eichel stats. Like he's shooting 3% at 5-on-5. Like he shot double digit. I think last year and a couple years before that. Like his worst season is like 7.3%, and he's less than half that now. He's under 5% on ice shooting, which means the team's shooting less than 5% with him on the ice. I think that was also over 10% last year. Like there's just all kinds of signs of crazy positive regression to come. And anybody that watched them their last game, I think Eichel hit 2 posts and Reinhart hit 1 or something like that. So like, we're talking 3 inches away from, what was almost a bagel night to being a GPP winning night. Like these guys are right there. And beyond that, New Jersey's penalty kill is the worst in the league, and it's not even close. Their expected goals against is 9.4, and the next closest is at 8.1. So, like, they're 15% worse than the next worst penalty kill. So, I'm all in Buffalo power play. Eichel, Reinhart, Hall, Olofsson, Dahlin, mix and match as many as you want. They're my highest exposure here tonight. Hey, man, if they bust, they bust, but this is a great spot for Buffalo. So Buffalo power play. I've got nothing from the Devils side in this game. There's just not a lot that interests me. That Devils, the top line with Hischier and Zaka, like they're probably going to get ran over. Brad's fine defensively. Zaka's terrible defensively. Hischier's just coming back, so he's probably still getting his legs under him. I think all around, this is just a great matchup for the Buffalo top line. I'd just say don't forget about Taylor Hall.
Yep, do not forget about Taylor Hall. In fact, I think he's going to be my highest exposed Buffalo skater. I'll have a lot of like Hall with Eichel, Reinhart, Hall with Eichel, Olofsson. I didn't want to like Buffalo going into it. I thought they were going to be very chalky. Again, maybe we're undershooting them on ownership, but you can only say that about so many teams tonight. Like there's a lot of options. We have yet to talk about Montreal, Edmonton, Vancouver. Like there's still some options to be had. So yeah, Buffalo one of the better stacks of the night. I also like Buffalo 2 as a full stack. If you want to play Cousins for low ownership at 2,500 with Stahl and Hall, they've been solid at 5-on-5 as well. Matt Irwin, again, I'm going back to the well. He'll break my heart for the 3rd night in a row. But he's 2,700. He's going to probably play 18, 20 minutes and will block some shots, but nothing sticking out to me on the New Jersey side. Let's go to Nashville and Detroit. 3 implied total for the Preds, 2.4. For the Red Wings, Rene, Bernier, could be Grice. They're both the same price on DraftKings, which is good. This is the first of the 7:30 Eastern start times and actually the last. And then we've got just 2 more remaining. Anything catching your eye here?
Well, now that Mantha's back on the top line with Dylan Larkin, they're probably going to use Larkin and Mantha as a shutdown line. Remember earlier in the season, they had been using the Nielsen-Ernie third line as their shutdown line and letting Larkin and Mantha on their respective lines kind of run free, but that's probably not going to happen here. I suspect Larkin and Mantha are going to be up against the Nashville top line, and honestly, that just takes both top lines out of play for me. Like Mantha is like Detroit's been great, like good to great defensively this year. Like they're not really giving up a lot, and they don't give up a ton of power plays either. 6th fewest in the league. Not that you ever really stack Nashville for their power play, but that's just another point that shows that Nashville really doesn't have a ton of upside here. I just think it's a tough matchup going into Detroit, believe it or not. And I'm just wondering how that line gets like 3 correlated goals or something like that, especially where Detroit doesn't take many penalties. So I'm pretty out on both top lines here. I don't mind dumping down a bit to the Detroit second line. Vladislav Nemesnikov looks like he's going to be back. I think he's centering that second line with Bobby Ryan and Philip Zadina. Mm-hmm. They're cheap, so like if you want to stuff a couple of them in with your Boston stacks or with a Chicago stack or something like that, you can do that. And they're probably going to get the second and third lines from Nashville here, which I think is the better matchup than going after the top line and going into especially the top pair. So I don't mind some 2-mans from Detroit here, but honestly, most of my exposure is either one-off Roman Josi or one-off Ryan Ellis. I don't have a single full stack out of this game in my lineups.
I will have a decent amount of Detroit 1. I don't know if it's going to get to double digits, but I think I'll have some of at least Larkin Mantha, like Ryan, or Larkin Mantha, whether it's Fabry or Nielsen. I'm seeing some conflicting reports there. So just stick to the basics. Larkin Mantha, solid 2-man at 11-2. And then I actually like Nashville too a little bit. Duchesne, Yarncroc, and Grimaldi. They've been playing fine at 5-on-5. They're a filler stack. And you get some secondary power play time there. Josi 6,900. I don't know that it's Josi night per se, but I'm getting him at around 25-30% of my lineups. So the normal, it's not the 60% that he'll be at sometimes. They price him up enough. He's going to be owned enough that he won't get pushed up too much for me. But that's it there for me. Anything else? We got about 7 or 8 more minutes for 2 more games, plus a little read here.
Yeah, no, that's it for me.
All right. Just a reminder that we're going to be up on podcast this show. Every single strategy show that we do goes up on podcast. So whether you listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, we'll be there. And if you write us a nice review, the review is very important. We're trying to grow our podcasts. If you write us a nice review, give us a 5-star rating. You got a chance to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So we'll be giving those away intermittently. Good luck if you do that. And if you want to write us a review, just tell them how much you love the NHL DFS strategy show because you're watching us right now. Montreal, Winnipeg, 3.3 implied total for the Canadiens, 3.1 for the Jets. Price Hellebuck. Seems like there could be a lot of goals in these final 2 games. What do you like on Montreal or Winnipeg? Are you?
They're putting together their old line of Danault, Gallagher, and Tatar. It's long been one of the best 5-on-5 lines in hockey. Tatar had been on the third line of late, but he's back in his usual spot. Like their numbers are just like crazy absurd. 3.3 expected goals for their sample, 2.0 expected goals against, like just absurdly good. And Winnipeg has been using their third line a lot against the opposing top line, and I'm not worried about Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton. I'm sorry. So I have Montreal, like Danault and Tatar is one of my favorite 2-mans tonight, to fit in super expensive Pittsburgh or to fit in, expensive Boston or something like that. Like those guys are probably going to play 15, 16 minutes in a good matchup. So I love that Montreal top line tonight. I'm not in so much on Winnipeg. I think if you're stacking Winnipeg, you kind of have to power play stack here. Montreal is just one of the highest penalty taking teams in the league. I think they're still second place right behind Dallas. So If I'm going to power play stack, it'd be like Scheifele, Wheeler, Connor, or Scheifele, Stasny, Connor, or something like that. I imagine Dubois is going to go into a ton of lineups because he's only 3K. You can stack the entire top line for under 16,000. So I imagine that Winnipeg top line is fairly chalky. So if you want to get different, I think you're probably going to have to power play stack them in some fashion. So that's where I'm at here. As I'm not in on Winnipeg tonight personally. But if I was going to use them, it'd probably be a power play stack. For me personally, in my lineups, I'm all over that Montreal top line.
I hate stacking Winnipeg against a good even strength team in Montreal. At least they're even strength lines. It makes it appealing with Dubois up there. So I'm going to get to some begrudgingly of this Winnipeg one line. I probably won't get to too much of the second line. And that stinks because I hate leaving off Ehlers. But Montreal's is very, very strong at 5-on-5. And so I like the Danault, Tatar, Gallagher line. Like, you never have to talk me into them, especially Tatar's price coming down. The power play correlation isn't great. And then the second line as well, Suzuki, Drouin, and Anderson. Anderson's priced up a little bit, so they don't come out as a good value. And that's why their ownership is very low, but I'll be willing to take some shots as well on them. If you're going to Winnipeg, I think the best way is just to power play stack, like you said. So I think we're in agreement for the most part on this game. Are there any guys on the blue line, or should we move it on?
Yeah, one guy I want to mention real quick is Dylan DeMello. His price has dropped down to min price because he'd been playing 12, 13 minutes, but he was up to 21 minutes last game. So if he plays 21 again, that 2,500 is a steal.
Yeah. If you're a Matt Irwin hater, I mean, there you go. $200 cheaper. No, I actually do like the call. Let's go to the last game of the night. Edmonton, Vancouver, 3.4 implied total for the Oilers, 3.1 for the Canucks. I didn't even have to change anything on our little run sheet here. It is the exact same game, basically. The exact same totals as 2 nights ago. And guess what? I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did 2 nights ago. It's just a little bit bigger of a slate. But are you going back to the Vancouver train? I can't remember if you were on them.
I'm not. I am, but I'm not. So I'll explain that. I'm with you on Edmonton. Love Edmonton here tonight. I have a ton of power play stacks. Vancouver is the 3rd most penalized team behind Dallas and Montreal, so they should get their chances. I just want to mention, last game, Edmonton had Puljujarvi, Nurse, Yamamoto, and Chiasson on the power play at different times. So, don't be afraid to throw in like a Chiasson or a Yamamoto into your lineups because they might get a minute of power play time at the top unit anyway. So that'd be one way to get different. What I'm doing with Vancouver's moving Nils Hoglander to the top line and JT Miller down to the 3rd line. So that would say to me that Miller is going to play with Brandon Sutter and Adam Gaudette. And they're going to get the Edmonton 3 matchup, and they are going to smash the Edmonton 3 matchup because that bottom 6 from the Oilers is absolutely god-awful. Mm-hmm. So as a filler stack, Miller's still expensive because he just got moved down. So he's still 5,700, I think, on DraftKings. But Gaudette and Sutter are super cheap. So, you can fit them in with an expensive Boston or something like that. So I'm not in on Vancouver so much. Love Edmonton, Edmonton power play. Sutter, Gaudette, and JT Miller is where I'm going to focus for my Vancouver exposure.
Vancouver late night hammer for me. Sounds like I'm higher on them than you are. I think one of my highest exposed lines, the Miller Pettersson Besser line.
Miller's like the third line, man.
What'd you say?
Miller's on the 3rd line.
Wait, I'm not seeing that on my screen.
He got moved down to the 3rd line. Nils Hoglander's on the top line. I think it's going to be Antoine Roussel playing with Pettersson and Besser.
All right. Well, that's going to change some things for sure. But I think I'll still be pretty heavy on Vancouver. I got to take another look at this now. That's going to ruin a lot for me. But anyways, you can always go to the power play with Vancouver. Pretty good total here.
Yeah, Miller still be with him on the power play.
Yeah, someone's going to have a really good 5-on-5 matchup. In fact, 2 lines for the Canucks are going to have really good 5-on-5 matchups, whoever doesn't get McDavid. If you want to go to Edmonton on the other side, I have no problems with that pretty much ever. But I still think Vancouver is probably going to score a handful of goals here. Mike Smith cannot continue to be okay. He's going to have his blow up at some point, and I'm hoping it's tonight. So that's all I've got here. Anything else before we head out of here?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody for watching. Catch us on podcasts if you couldn't catch us live. And good luck. It will be, I believe, Josh and myself tomorrow afternoon. See you then.